Hey everyone, it's your boy, and today we're going to talk about bad, good games. There's games out there that you revisit time and time again, and there are great games that you spend a lot of time on and never come back to. This episode is about the latter, and why it's a bit difficult for me to come back to 3 solid titles in my gaming library. Before I begin, this is all my subjective opinion, and it's a list, not a ranking. So firstly, League of Legends. League of Legends. I'll have to admit, League of Legends is a good game. After taking the world by storm in 2009, it's only gotten more popular. It's a testament to the hard work the developers, Riot Games, put into the game, the community, and the competitive scene. There are a lot of things to like about this title. There are hundreds of champions to pick with different abilities, mechanics, and aesthetics. There's tanks, bruisers, DPS, assassins, mages, healers, supports, you name it. This game is pretty straightforward. You fight the enemy champions, you destroy their towers, and then you blow up the Nexus. I spent so many hours with my online buddies fighting the opposing team and building great memories. Getting that first pentakill, sniping someone from across the map with an ash arrow, getting a pentakill with fiddlesticks, insta-giving a squishy with Gangplank's Q, base racing the other team, stealing Baron, the list goes on and on. And I lost so many hours to this game when it first came out because it was so damn addicting. It's just one more game, turned into playing to 4 a.m. into the morning, and I was just completely hooked. One of the best parts about League of Legends is it's free to play, done right. No silly premium accounts, no gimmicks, just get the champions you want and load into the game. If you want to spend money to get some skins for your favorite character, that's totally on you, and it won't give you an inherent advantage to someone who isn't spending money on the game. It's a model that works and isn't pay to win unlike some other free-to-play titles. I'm looking at you, World of Tanks. So why did I put League of Legends on this list? To be honest, I haven't played League of Legends on a regular basis for about 7 to 8 years, so before you flame me, just know that some of these things may have changed or evolved since I last remembered them. I used to play League of Legends religiously between 2010 and 2011. From 2012 to around 2014, I still played League, but it was more on and off. But I have played over 1,000 matches and reached max level back when the level cap was 30. That's the perspective I'm coming from. Someone that once devoted countless hours to the game. I tried to get back into League during the pandemic because some of my friends decided to return or start for the first time, but the game had lost its luster. It no longer captivated me as it once did, and the game was simply not fun. One of the biggest reasons is the lack of player freedom. I like making choices when playing video games. I like having the freedom to decide what to play and how to play. Let's take Company of Heroes 2 for example. Company of Heroes 2 is a World War II strategy game. I can open the game with a variety of builds, infantry heavy, I can rush a light vehicle, I can turtle up with support weapons, I can select units that fit into my playstyle, and I can approach the situation in a way that's comfortable for me. Now, how about an open world RPG like Elden Ring? I can go pretty much anywhere in the game, fight the bosses in any order. I have tons of builds and items to experiment with, ranging from two-handed weapons, magic, shields, swords, you name it. That game supports player choice. Now, I'm not saying that all video games need to have this. There's obviously games like first-person shooters and adventure games that are linear and confined, and that's totally okay. The Medal of Honor and Call of Duty franchises are a great example of this. You're sucked into a cinematic Hollywood experience, and your job is to just sit back and enjoy. Developers want their games to evoke certain feelings and immerse the player into a crafted experience. So why then am I complaining about League of Legends? Well, League didn't used to be this way. When it first came out, it gave the player freedom and choice on how to play. For example, you could play Master Yi, as AP and deal quote-unquote tons of damage with his Q ability and heal for tremendous amounts using his W. You could play Soraka as AD, you could play AP Galio. There was just much more flexibility on who you could play in lanes. Maybe you could play a tank hero in mid, maybe you could play a mage top, you could have a kill lane on bottom with my favorite combination, Pantheon and Blitzcrank. You could be more liberal with your picks, and the game didn't feel like it was forcing you to do certain comps or strategies. Now, League of Legends always had some sort of meta, and when one certain meta got too strong, it would get nerfed. There was always some pressure to play into the meta and what was conventional at the time, or else you would get flamed. But it felt like there was much more experimentation in those first couple years, partially because the game was new and players were still trying to figure out things. That's what made the game exciting. Everyone was still trying to figure out the best way to play, the best way to win, the best combinations, and that made the game fresh and unique. As long as you did well and helped the team get a win, no one could complain. What's the deal with forcing everyone to queue as a certain role and basically institutionalizing the whole meta of one top, one mid, two bottom, and one jungler? Now, this is probably a good anti-toxicity change so people don't fight over roles and flame each other, before the game even starts. But I hate that Riot is basically forcing people to play in a certain way. I thought Riot was against metas. When I jumped into League for a quick game during the pandemic, I was dismayed that Riot basically grouped certain heroes into top laners, and certain heroes into supports, certain heroes into junglers, and so on and so forth. I'm basically forced into playing Pantheon as jungler if someone already took a bruiser top lane, or I get flamed if I don't play a ranged AD bottom. Blizzard has this game called Heroes of the Storm, which is unfortunately dead, but me and my friends played it for a good year during its run. There was so much more flexibility in that game in terms of picks and how you navigated the game. For example, I loved playing Asmodan and throwing balls of death from miles away to hit creeps while spawning demons to push lanes. One of his ultimate abilities drops a horde of demons onto the map that is super strong to structures. While my teammates were stalling for time or fighting at objectives, I pushed lanes and forced the enemy to either disengage from my teammates and fight me or continue fighting for the objective and risk losing their base completely. There was another unique character in Heroes of the Storm called Abathur. In order to utilize his abilities, you needed to route yourself to a place somewhere on the map, which made your character immobile. He was extremely fragile and would die quickly if attacked. This meant that you effectively only had 4 players in lane instead of 5, and you needed to hide him somewhere on the map so he wouldn't get killed. While that may seem like a huge con, he could utilize abilities to push lanes and simultaneously buff his allies. A skilled Abathur player could utilize all of its abilities effectively, all while moving the character from place to place on the map to avoid other enemy heroes that were out hunting it. These are refreshing and unique strategies and design choices that you'll never see in League, either because the game doesn't incentivize that kind of play, or you're just going to get flamed for trying to do something that's out of the meta. I remember when some prominent League team utilized teleport, Shen, and I think it was Master Yi to quickly backdoor the enemy's towers in a major tournament. And this led to Riot nerfing teleport and Shen's ult soon after that. If I recall correctly, they nerfed the shield duration or the cooldown of Shen's ult. This coincided with a bunch of ult changes that discouraged backdooring, like nerfing Twisted Fate and Pantheon's ultimates by significantly reducing their range from a global ult. Riot basically removed what I see is a legitimate strategy to win games. That's why I play ARAM nowadays, not just because I don't have the time to play a full match, but it's a lot closer to how I want to play the game compared to a regular match. There's a lot of randomness and luck involved, which is not the reason why I like it, but sometimes you just end up with a wacky team comp that just works. There's no real laning phase, so there's plenty of room to experiment with builds and playstyles. Maybe you end up with 5 melee heroes and wreck the other team. Maybe your team lacks harass but has great engage, so you try to force team fights. That's the League of Legends I miss and enjoy. People trying new comps, albeit randomly generated, and playing the game however they want. If it works, then it works. Now I'm not saying turn League into anarchy, where team composition doesn't matter and counterpicking isn't important. Those are really important strategic elements. I think what I'm suggesting makes counterpicking, team composition, and strategic planning even more important. By making alternative strategies and builds more viable, you really have to plan that much better with your teammates because you have to be prepared for those pocket picks and different strategies. In conclusion, am I mad at Riot for making these changes? No, I'm not. Riot changes the game based on their design philosophy, what makes sense for their community, and what continues to keep them profitable. This simply is a case where League of Legends no longer satisfied what I'm looking for in a computer game, and that's okay. I should even applaud Riot for keeping the game popular all these years. Very few companies can say that they've supported a game for over 10 years while maintaining or even demonstrating player growth. So, props to Riot, it's just not for me. The next game I want to talk about is World of Tanks Blitz. I have a love-hate relationship with World of Tanks Blitz. I'll either be spamming battle after battle or raging hard at the computer screen. This game does a lot of things right. It's no surprise that I have 942 hours dedicated to this title. The entire concept of the game is simple and straightforward. You blow up the enemy tanks or win by capturing points. There's dozens, if not hundreds of tanks in the game. There are light tanks, medium tanks, heavy tanks, and tank destroyers. Some of these are based off historical vehicles from the interwar period, World War II, and the Cold War. Some are completely fictional and were designs that never left the drawing board. Whether you like the look and feel of historical vehicles, or just want to play a tank that looks cool, you'll find one in World of Tanks Blitz. The objectives of the game are simple, but the gameplay mechanics are solid and surprisingly deep. Each tank has their own unique characteristics, ranging from damage, armor, gun depression, rotation speed, and more. These characteristics can influence your playstyle and tactics you choose. Heavy tanks are suited towards taking damage and pushing. Medium tanks are decent damage dealers with solid mobility. Light tanks have great vision and are great spotters. Tank destroyers have high penetration and great camouflage. Understanding your tank's strengths can greatly contribute to your chances of winning a game. Tactics are such a huge part of the game, and what tank you drive alters how you approach the map and combat. For example, if you're driving a tank with a high degree of gun depression, then you're probably going to stay near hills or ridge lines, so you can basically shoot at targets without exposing much of the tank's body, and this makes it really difficult for other enemies to hit you. If you're a tank with a turret and you come across a non-turreted tank, then one of the tactics that you might utilize is circle strafing a non-turreted vehicle, because they can't rotate the turret to hit you, they have to rotate the entire body of the vehicle, and you can just circle strafe and abuse people. Even though World of Tanks Blitz is a great game, I've got some major gripes. The main issue with World of Tanks is its in-game economy. The game requires you to sufficiently upgrade your tank with different parts until you unlock the next tank in the tech tree. There are 10 tiers, so you'll certainly be grinding through at a minimum 8 different tanks, assuming you start at tier 1. There's also 4 tank types, as I mentioned, which increases the amount of grinding needed, but not all nations have a tank at every tier. At a glance, this isn't too bad. It's fairly simple to get from tier 1 to tier 6. It's even quite enjoyable seeing the diversity of tanks encountered, the different playstyles, and so on. However, anything past tier 7 is a real slog. We'll get into premium accounts later, but assuming you're not paying extra for this game, you're going to be spending dozens of hours, maybe even hundreds of hours to move up tiers. Remember, you need to upgrade your tank with certain gear before you even get a chance to unlock the next tiered tank. That generally includes the gun, an engine, treads, and sometimes a turret. The higher the tier, the more expensive it is to unlock new equipment, and a new tank. To top it off, it gets increasingly expensive to play this game. When I mean expensive, I mean spending credits, which is the in-game currency. In order to supply your tank with ammunition, supplies, parts, upgrades, repairs, and to buy new tanks, you need to spend credits. Like I said before, the grind for credits and experience isn't so bad from tier 1 to tier 6, but holy hell, once you get to higher tiers where the tanks are expensive, the ammunition is expensive, and the repair costs start to spike, you'll have a tough time earning a decent profit after each match. What if I want to play the big badass tier 10 tanks? Oh, you better play your ass off every single match or you'll end up losing credits. Imagine losing credits in a game where you need to refit your tank every single match, which costs credits. You're basically hurting yourself by playing the most advanced and powerful tanks. It's stupid. It's anti-fun. This leads to my last point, premium accounts. Premium accounts give you a bonus to credits earned and research points, so you can grind faster through tank lines and afford purchases. The game basically forces you to spend real money to buy a premium account by making the in-game economy hell for you. Yes, I know they need to make money, but League of Legends doesn't have such a whacked out economy that you need to spend on a premium account. I haven't been paying attention to the current League system, but back when they had IP and RP, you would just save up and buy whichever champion you liked. It was that simple. Technically, you could spend real money for Riot Points and buy any champion you want, but buying a new champion didn't necessarily give you an inherent advantage. When you're spending real money on the game, you can buy the equipment or tank outright and play against people who aren't spending money and are still working towards upgrading their vehicle, giving you a significant performance boost. If I want a challenge, I want to be playing against real players, and not the artificially manufactured economy. Let me get a chance to unlock equipment and tanks at a reasonable rate, not spending dozens of hours for just one new turret or the best gun. And that's basically what turned me off from continuing to play World of Tanks Blitz. It's a damn fun casual game that you can mindlessly spam matches on. Damn, is it frustrating. If you play this game for anything more than a match or two a day, then you basically need to buy a premium account to have that credit stockpile to play at higher tiers. At that point, I could be spending my money on other things. Now it's time for my most controversial take. Red Dead Redemption. This game is worthy of all the praise it received when it released in 2010. It still holds up well today. It's one of the few games that takes place in the Wild West along with Gun and Red Dead Revolver. So the setting already makes it unique. The graphics still look pretty good 12 years later. The environments look and feel like the Wild West, and the skyboxes look beautiful and realistic. The atmosphere and design of the setting is top notch. There's a lot to like about this game, and for those that have played this game, you probably know why. I really want to drill down and talk about my frustrations and criticisms of this title. Given the enormous praise Red Dead Redemption received upon release, it's almost a bit taboo to even criticize this game. First, I want to talk about mechanics, specifically the cover system. By the time Red Dead Redemption was released, their third-person shooting mechanics were already stale and outdated. RDR utilized the shooting and cover systems GTA 4 used. You would press a button to snap into cover, then you had the option to blind fire or pop out of cover with aim shots. When GTA 4 introduced this in 2008, it was a big leap compared to previous GTA and Rockstar titles, but by the time RDR came out, it was a familiar formula. These mechanics are still present in third-person shooters today like Grand Theft Auto 5, Red Dead Redemption 2, Sleeping Dogs, The Division, etc., etc., so I guess if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But it would have been nice to see Rockstar mix up the gunplay. Red Dead Redemption also introduced the Deadeye mechanic, which allows you to slow down time and tag enemies for rapid shots. It's a pretty neat feature that makes you feel like a duelist, but it's not really that innovative. Max Payne already popularized the bullet time mechanic, which allowed you to slow down time and shoot your enemies. When you add Deadeye to a third-person cover shooter with auto-aim, the game becomes a little too easy. At least in the old GTA games like Vice City or San Andreas, you couldn't snap to cover, which made gunfights a little bit more challenging. I never felt like the gunfights were difficult in RDR, and it seemed like I died more from clunky controls rather than the difficult AI. Speaking of controls, the movement and controls of this game are clunky as hell. John Marston, the protagonist, moves like a man coated in molasses. When you push the joystick, I feel like there's a little bit of delay in John's movement, and it doesn't feel like you're going anywhere quickly. Additionally, what makes the game frustrating is the actual controls for cover. You don't really have a good sense of where your character will take cover, especially if it's a circular object like a rock. I can recall the number of times I died from John Marston taking cover on the wrong side of an object and then getting killed by a hail of bullets. It feels like you're fighting more against the controls as opposed to the actual enemy. These clunky controls exist in Red Dead Redemption 2, and it's possibly even worse in that sequel. I get that Rockstar, the developers, want a game to feel realistic and give the characters some weight, but it's frustrating when you want some precision in your character controls. After all, you're the one that's playing the game. I'm thinking of all the controls and buttons the game throws at you at different situations. There's a lot of activity-specific controls like card games, tracking and hunting, skinning animals, lassoing and carrying people, and mission-specific controls. I feel like I'm always looking at the screen for the prompts to pop up because the controls seem to be different for every single situation. I know it's a different game, but look at FPS games. For decades, FPS games, no matter what developer, generally had a standardized button layout. If we're using the keyboard, R was always reload, then you would have a crouch button that's usually Control or C, interact was usually E or F, and grenade was either like the mouse button or a button on the keyboard. The less clunky the controls and movement are, the more I can focus on actually playing and enjoying the game. The last thing I want to discuss is the combination of story and mission structure. The core mission structure is fine. It's just like any other GTA title, where there's branching missions that give you some choice on which one to complete first, and eventually, once you complete certain missions, the plot moves forward, which unlocks additional mission trees. My gripe is how these interactions actually play out. John Marston is basically a glorified errand boy. John talks to NPC and demands they give him information on the whereabouts of his former gang associates. NPC says okay, but you need to help me first. John gets mad but relents, rinse and repeat a couple times, and then John is off to the next NPC. Now this isn't a unique problem to Red Dead Redemption. Carl Johnson and Tommy Vercetti from Grand Theft Auto San Andreas and Grand Theft Auto Vice City were errand boys too, but at least they interacted with some memorable characters like The Truth, Woozy Moo, Ryder, Sweet, Big Smoke were from San Andreas, and Ken Paul, the Colonel, Ken Rosenberg, and Diaz from Vice City. I never found the characters in Red Dead Redemption compelling or even likable, which makes interacting with them and taking missions from them a bit lackluster. These side characters were just devices to advance the plot and not people that you actually cared for or wanted to know more of. When I'm playing Red Dead and interacting with the characters and doing missions for them, I want to feel like I'm helping them, that my actions will make a difference. Maybe they'll give me a useful weapon. Maybe they'll give me a handy tool for my troubles. Maybe they'll be important to the story or show up at the ending to help you out. I want to feel like these characters matter to the story. Yet, as I'm going through the game, it's clear that only John Marston matters, and sure, he's the main character. I don't feel as immersed into that world when I know that the other NPCs are just there to advance the plot. Now, it would be a tough sell to get me playing League of Legends or World of Tanks Blitz in a consistent manner again. However, I wouldn't mind jumping back into Red Dead Redemption. It's a single-player game, so you don't get these toxic experiences you sometimes encounter in a multiplayer title. This is kind of related to the theme of bad good games, but it's asking people to try and rethink their scoring systems for video games. Now, Red Dead Redemption is a fantastic game, and when you take the sum of its parts and review it, it deserves all the praise that it got. Yet I'm skeptical when people give out 10 out of 10 reviews or call a video game a masterpiece so easily. When people say Red Dead Redemption is a masterpiece, you're saying there's virtually no flaws with the game and every single aspect of it is perfection. It's like calling RDR the godfather of video games. And when I mean the godfather, I'm talking about the movie. The Godfather is universally regarded as a great movie, if not the greatest movie ever made. It has fantastic acting, writing, storyline, costumes, etc. You name it. There are virtually no flaws with the film, which is why it deserves to be called the greatest movie ever. To me, you can't say that about Red Dead Redemption. Even if you enjoy the game like I do, these are criticisms of the game you have to factor in, which doesn't justify the amount of 10 out of 10s this game received from users and critics. Well, there you have it. Those are my 3 bad good games. Again, these are just my opinions. Do you agree or disagree? What are your thoughts? Thanks for tuning in.